Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Trying something new yet again as I try to optimize the best way to provide these videos and make it a little easier on me to produce and probably improve the quality of what's being produced and sent to you guys on YouTube. Today's coin is something different. And our tagline, as I say, is when things are not what they seem. So remember last year when the pandemic started and everybody was all excited about, hey, Zoom, that's a great software. Time to buy the stock because everybody is using Zoom. And then people ran out and bought the wrong Zoom. Zoom Technologies is a Chinese company whose stock is a fraction of the value, but everybody jumped into it and its stock really peaked until the SEC stepped in and stopped trading because this was clearly because of investor confusion and people didn't do their homework. Well, they're not exactly on point, but this is similar to what today's video is going to be talking about. So let's go back first to ancient Egypt, the land of pyramids, the Sphinx, giant statues, huge monuments, scarabs, and no coins. This was because the ancient Egyptian economy was not monetized with coins. And you don't really see coins coming in until the Persian conquest of Egypt in the 520s. And over the next century, what Egypt starts doing is imitating the tetradrachms of Athens, often generally for the purposes of trade, foreign trade. And then eventually, Egypt does break away from the Persian Empire. Egypt was never really happy under Persian rule. And then the new pharaohs of Egypt started issuing, again, Athenian coins because these were paying now for the Greek hoplites, the heavy infantry that were keeping Egypt independent because the Persians did not go away. They kept invading and the Egyptians needed an army. And the last two pharaohs of Egypt actually minted in gold, and all of this again to hire Greek mercenaries. So a couple of coins, which to clarify, these are not my coins. These are images of the web, and these are coins way beyond the ability of my bank account to sustain. The first one is a coin of the penultimate native pharaoh of Egypt, who's called Piazz by the Greeks, and Jeder, according to his inscriptions. It's about 8.27 grams, and the design imitates the Athenian owl, with Athena and actually an owl in the reverse, and the pharaoh's name on the right written in Greek, Tao. Now, there's only one of these coins known, and this one is permanently parked in the walls of the British Museum. The second coin, there are more of these floating about, and this particular image is, I believe, from the New York sale in November 2017. Again, this thing went for $140,000, so way beyond my ability to have it. I'm not going to, unless I really win $1 billion Powerball, I'm never going to own one of these. Nektanebo II was the last native pharaoh of Egypt, and he was actually the last native ruler to rule all of Egypt until the coup by Naguib and Nasser against King Farouk in 1953. Now, this coin is a gold stater, and Nektanebo also had some gold fractions and possibly a silver fraction, but that's not confirmed. And this has a horse prancing right, and there's a hieroglyphic representation of good gold on the right. Pectoral necklace for Nebu gold over a windpipe and heart, so good. These coins show up every so often, highly designed, and again, these are six-figure coins. So let's bring up the star of our show. Now, if you look at it, the motif is very similar to the last coin of Nektanebo II I showed you, but this one is in bronze. It is 15 millimeters, 3.89 grams, and you have a ram running to the left. The head is looking backwards, and you have scales on the back. And this one has a nice black patina and sandy deposits based on where it was found. And you can see some scratches type stuff on the reverse because that whoever got this coin cleaned it and left some scratches in there. Our usual comparison to George, you can see again, this is not a very big coin. It's smaller than a usual American quarter. So why am I talking about this coin? So let's see how the fun begins. There's a German scholar at the University of Cologne called Wolfram Weiser, who had a book called the catalog on the catalog of the Ptolemaic bronze coins, and that's the image on the right, in the at the University of Cologne. And on page 16, he identified one of these coins, and based on the similarity to those of Nektanebo II's gold coin, he identified this as a bronze coin of Nektanebo. Now again, as I said, ancient Egypt did not have coins. So if you are going to find a coin in bronze, which is a little more accessible, and at this point this was also a fairly much more rare coin, naturally people got excited. And this is a coin, the first online sale I find of this coin is by the Classical Numismatic Group in 2001, and that one hammered for about 1350. And you can see the description over here. It talks about Nektanebo II. Nektanebo was the last pharaoh because even though he beat back like 3 or 4 different invasions of Egypt, eventually Artaxerxes III invaded, and his Greek mercenary mentor of Rhodes betrayed him. And in 343, Nektanebo was forced to flee into Ethiopia, where he held on to southern Egypt for a while, but eventually lost control. And so this is this coin being attributed to him, or needless to say, made it very, very desirable to collectors. And then, having identified a bronze coin of Nektanebo II, it went in demand, and the price started to zoom. In 2005, one sold for $3,750, again $3,500, and in 2007, the highest price I've been able to find of this coin online, it went for $4,700. But then something happened. Around 2009, the price starts stagnating. And again, these are sort of representative prices. There's some that went above, there's some went significantly below. So I just sort of pulled these out to create a trend line. So you have one that sold for about $2,400 in 2009, and you can see it just starts dropping. Zeros keep dropping off it, and by 2018, it sold about $112, and that's generally the range these coins go for, between $80 and $150, depending on the condition. And unless somebody still uses unless it's misattributed on the old attribution, that I saw one go for $700 recently, but about $100 around it is where this range of this coin is. But hey, what happened? Why did this coin dramatically decline in value? Well, because this is almost certainly not a coin of Nektanebo II. Now, the image on it, it looks similar to Nektanebo, like you have the horse, you have the scales, you have the other hieroglyphic representation. But the big problem for this coin is these have not actually been found in Egypt. They have been found in Syria. And Egypt at the time did not have an internal monetized economy, so it didn't really need bronze coinage. And bronze coinage typically is used for local transactions. It's not used for external trade, and mercenaries like to be paid in gold and silver. So the Pharaoh of Egypt is not going to be minting these coins for that. Now, Nektanebo II did interfere in Syria when the satraps revolted under Artaxerxes III, but again, it's unlikely that these bronze coins would be issued for that purpose because, again, soldiers like to be paid in gold and silver. So if this is not Nektanebo, what the heck is this? So the topology of this coin seems very similar to coins struck in Antioch, which have a similar leaping ram, and the scales could be a local representation for commerce instead of Egyptian mythology. But again, Syrian coins typically have an ethnic identifying the city, which makes it a little unusual. There's a scholar called Butcher who notes that the style is very similar to 3rd century AD. Now we have moved from 3rd century BC to AD issues of Antioch, and notes that the leaping ram is very common in Damascus. Yes, the same Damascus, which is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. And another scholar had identified this to an uncertain mint in Kamajini, which is, I believe, now southeastern Turkey. And so this is possibly an uncertain mint in northern Syria, and according to Butcher, it's probably the 3rd century AD. So this would be around the time of the Roman Empire, and the Romans allowed provincial coinage in their provinces. But as I said, this is almost certainly not a coin of Nektanebo II. So this brings up an interesting warning for people investing in ancient coins. Buyer beware. Like first, if you want to invest, frankly, invest in stocks. Invest in invest in the stock market. They'll compound. It's not really, coins are really not the greatest investment value. They don't appreciate as much. This is really more a collector hobby than anything else. And the risk you have is even if you have a really rare coin, and an example is the tetradrachms of the Seleucid Demetrius III, which were again 4-digit coins like barely more than a decade ago, and now then a hoard was found, and now you get them for around $300 to $400, unless it's a really rare reverse. Also, if you have a coin that's anonymous, unless it's been found in a particular hoard, which allows you to date it to certainty, these attributions are always risky. And once in a while, you have coins, particularly in India, where they don't use the common ruler name, they will use a nickname or a regnal name, which makes the identification with a particular ruler a little more riskier. And again, this can change. And there is always a tendency to link coins to famous people and famous events. And well, it's a natural thing, right? You want a coin of Cleopatra, and now there are Ptolemaic bronzes which were attributed to Cleopatra, but it may not be the same Cleopatra we're talking about. More infamously, the Indo-Scythian king Aziz II, based on an article, somebody speculated he was one of the 3 wise men coming to the nativity of Jesus. Well, Aziz II was not marching across Afghanistan from across Parthia all the way to Palestine for this, and as it turns out, Aziz was dead for 20 years. It has not stopped people from trying to link these coins to famous people or events of the Bible, and not this particular coin, but other coins. So beware when you don't know what it is. An attribution can be made, but there's always a chance that this changes, and that is the story of this coin. So what do you identify this coin as nowadays? So this coin, when it was listed as Southern Asia Minor or the Northern Levant. Asia Minor would be Commagene, or Northern Levant, maybe around Damascus. We totally don't know what this coin is. The mint is uncertain. It's still generally listed 3rd century BC, but it's very possible it's the 3rd century AD, Common Era, if you want. And so that will probably change as well. So we will see what happens with additional scholarship. But, even though it is not Nektanebo, it would have been cool if it was Nektanebo, who ended up in exile. His final fate is unknown. According to one of the Alexander romances, the Egyptians came up with a theory that he ended up in Macedon and then impregnated Olympia. So Alexander was actually his son. The Persians and the Shahnameh have similar stories about Alexander, making him descended from their own Shahs. So everybody wants to claim Alexander. But anyway, we don't know what happened to Nektanebo in the end. He probably died in exile in Ethiopia, unlike the last time a pharaoh of Egypt was overthrown and he was eventually slaughtered by the Persians. He didn't end entirely badly, so he didn't die in possession of his throne. But it is a cool coin. It's a fun story, and it is why I wanted to get this coin. So anyway, that's it for today. If you like this video, please hit subscribe and the bell icon, and I will see you soon.
I'm sick and tired of living in a